great so far. was having trouble with eye contact last set. I'll be with you in a minute. Brown, educated, well-intentioned, good girl in our town. I wonder where I'd be today if she had loved me too. Probably be driving kids to school. I guess I owe it all to Pamela Brown. All of my good times, all my running around. One of these days I might be in your town, and I guess I owe it all to Pamela Brown. Seen the lights of cities and I've been inside the door. Sailed to foreign countries and walked upon their shore. I guess the guy she married was the best part of my luck. She dug him 'cause he drove a pickup truck. I guess I owe it all to Pamela Brown. All of my good times, all my running around. One of these days I might be in your town, and I guess I owe it all to Pamela Brown. Especially for what she did for me. I guess I owe it all to Pamela Brown. All of my good times, all my running around. One of these days I might be in your town, and I guess I owe it all to Pamela Brown. Yes, I owe it all to Pamela Brown. Pardon me? This is really rough for me. I mean, if you get... where is it? It's right in there. Excuse me. It feels kind of good. But if you look at people, or at least if people look at me, I tend to look over there as soon as they're in. You know, there's something intimidating about eye contact, but I realize it's also required in my job, so I'm going to I'm going to try and pay off here with some real. This is professionalism at its highest. I'm looking at it. There's, I suppose the one thing you can't, it's very difficult to achieve eye contact with a dog. You've tried that. Well, you must have tried that. They won't do it. I don't know why. There's something they don't want to see. Well, actually, if you do connect with them, then they attack you. This is wise of them, I think. Anybody who spends a great deal of time staring deeply into a dog's eyes should be attacked. Tune I played last set is from a movie called Days of Heaven, which is about wheat. Which is, if I told you any more than that, I'd be up here for a while. I'll tell you just a little bit more. There's a scene in this movie. 3 people leave Chicago because they're depressed there and want to cheer up by harvesting wheat in Texas in 1914. My tongue is in my cheek here, but my tongue is in my cheek. I should go back to eye contact. I think I've got a little professional. Anyhow, these 3 people have harvested some wheat. They've cheered up. They've fallen in love. They've gotten depressed and angry, and they've just murdered the owner of the wheat farm with his own screwdriver. Lust is involved somewhere in there. Therefore, I started the scene with a minor key. But then they escape on a ferry boat down a river, neither of which exists in Texas. I'm going to try and look at you and play at the same time now. Oh, I can't hear when you do that. That's enough of that. forget some of my troubles. Sounds so much like the last two I just did that I better not. I haven't played this tonight. This is usually, if you squirt Downy on the stage surface, it gets rid of it. But I'm not going to do that. I don't have my Downy with me. This is an attempt to. This is a very slow tune that borders on being absolutely silly, but I think it still. It doesn't make me laugh, but you'll see what I mean. There's not much for it to do at any given point. There's a reason for that being. The reason is that this is an imitation of something 80% of the population either suffers from or indulges in, depending on the extent to which you suffer from or indulge in it. It's called, I suppose if you really suffer from it, it's called petit blanc. But if you get off on it, it's called, it doesn't have a name, but it happens to 80% of us. And I can describe it best by, as I have done before, by mentioning it happens to you in the morning when, sometimes it strikes me as a strange job, you know? But proceed with it here. Because when you wake up in the morning and you go, maybe you stare at some crud on the end of your spoon, you look at that, and then you realize after what could have been a very long time that you've just returned from somewhere and are now looking at the crud again on the end of your spoon. Right. It happens behind the wheel of a car. Also happens sometimes when you're drunk, but it's not as much fun when you're drunk. We're playing. We're performing tonight right near a place where I used to go when I got drunk. When I graduated from high school in Virginia, spent my last year there. I used to at Falls Church. I used to go down here to Dixie Liquor where they'd let me buy booze. I'd drink Tavola, and then I'd go over to the little tavern, which I regret now. I don't. But then I go down in the canal over here and throw up. I always had a lot of fun in Georgetown. These moments, there's another one of them that I'd like to tell you about, but I can't because it takes at least as long as what I've just spent doing, and so no, I can't really. I think you're putting me on just a little bit. I can tell. Well, anyhow, see if you disappear during this tone. See if you drift off. It's wonderful if you do. The pheasants. Oh, on the, yeah, those birds, some birds. Sure. Yeah. From last year? Yeah, I could do that. I probably will. It's... Glad you remembered that one. No, we'll see what happens. I climbed the hill to Julie's house, the place I used to live. I climbed the steps and tried the door and let myself in. The kitchen clock I used to watch had stopped at 5 to 5. A photograph I'd never seen. The car came up the drive. I stood outside the kitchen door, and when she turned her head, I said that I was back to stay. She laughed at what I said. She said that I'd grow old believing that I was what mattered most, that I'd uncover real feeling when I got I climbed the hill to Julie's house, the place I used to live. I climbed the steps and tried the door and let myself in. She said that I'd grow old believing that I was what mattered most, that I'd uncover real feeling when I got This was written as a joke by Paul Siegel in an attempt to irritate his roommates, or his girlfriend's roommate, so much that she'd move out. It failed on all counts, I think. They say that Louise was not half bad. It was written on the walls and window shades. And though she'd act the little girl, a deceiver, don't believe her, that's her trade. Sometimes a bottle of perfume, flowers, and maybe some lace. Men brought Louise 10-cent trinkets. Their intentions were easily traced. Everybody knew at times she cried mail train. Somewhere to the south, I heard them say, too bad it ended so ugly. Too bad she had to go this way. And the wind is blowing cold tonight. So good night, Louise, good night. touring right now. You'd probably be able to see him here. Pardon me? Yeah. That last tune was one of the longer ones I've been able to write. This is the longest that I've been able to come up with. But I have to confess that it's made up of 3 tunes that didn't know they were going to be part of one big one. We'll just ignore that. I'll ignore that and pretend that I thought of this all at once. It works especially well if it's in tune. It begins with a piece called Eggtooth, which was written for a movie short called A Little Snow Starts to Fall Again, which was oh, you couldn't have seen it. I mean, I hope you have. It was a 22-minute continuous movie short. Well, of course it'd be continuous. Our part had to be continuous, which was the problem. It was a piece written arbitrarily. Every 32 seconds you had a new movement, or match something to a minute 43, etc. And we went nuts doing it, and we didn't do it very well. An example of how well we did on it is to let you know that we finished it 8 years ago and it hasn't been released yet. It's sitting in New York somewhere. But I like that piece. It goes from there to a unit called Grim to the Brim, which I wrote for my father, who's grim, or used to be grim, and in the last few years he's sort of loosened up and exhibits some cheer here and there. He taught Jesu during the war, which is a little like, I mean, the U.S. Navy, well, it's a little like the guys wearing a Farley Granger hats, who figure they look like Farley Granger, but look more like Truman Capote. My father teaching jiu-jitsu is, I can't, well, I laugh. But the Navy version of jiu-jitsu is, I looked in the books that he had at home, is to pick up a stick and stick it in the other guy's eye. Nothing really very artful about that. But when we moved to Wyoming, I asked my father to teach me how to defend myself because I was getting beat up all the time. Which is the way he made friends in Wyoming was the way I made friends in Wyoming. And I said, you don't have to show me the part with the stick. Another one that I liked was spitting in your opponent's face. If I'm going to have to fight somebody, hand-to-hand combat, give me the guy that spits in my face. Right? Not the guy with the stick. So my father said, sure, I'll show you how to defend yourself. And he took me out, laid a mattress out in the backyard and took me out and beat the shit out of me. I still think about this years later. And it finishes a piece that I wrote for my son, who was 8, called The Orange Room. My son, I mentioned this last set, my son doesn't find me grim, but he finds me at least sort of silly. Or, well, I'd get, for example, somebody asked him what he wanted to do once when he grew up, and he said, nothing, like my dad. He's a smart kid. To tell you this, we were sitting in the living. I'm not one of your really terrific fathers, at least not the kind that's been described for it. I don't go out and throw the ball around, and I'm very poor at that. And we've tried it a couple times, and we've learned, both Joe and I, that no good above the wrist. It's kind of hopeless to try. And we've hit on something that we both enjoy, which is to sit around in the living room or wherever we are and think. And we think very hard for a period of time until one of us gets bored and goes somewhere else. I know I'm going to regret this kind of child raising when I'm older, but it's so much fun now I can't help it. He said one day, "Gee, Dad, someday I want to," and I, of course, thought that he wanted someday to be president or a guitar player, or vibraphonist. He said, "Someday, Dad, I want to drink a whole can of beer." I've seen him standing in the kitchen, about counter level, staring wistfully at the green belt. An 8-year-old kid. Might as well have an ambition you can fulfill. He's wonderful. His sister always wanted to know about sex and about biology in general, whether all of the big and old people stay big and old forever, and all the little bitty ones stay little bitty forever, and will she have to grow up? Well, how does that work? And it was, on and on and on and on. And just, you answer them. Joe, on the other hand, has never, even when we're sitting around thinking, has never had evidently the faintest thought about this kind of stuff. And since I'm the same guy who wanted to rush through puberty all the way down, right. I gotta remember that. Well, twice you erased my train of thought. Anyhow, it occurred to me that I should probably tell him, at least for this, just to relieve myself, so that I knew that he'd heard it. This is, even if he didn't want to know, I'd put it in there so he could refer to it later on. Not that just what he needed. So I was trying to think of a good place to do this, not wanting to disturb the silence at home. We were at a Pamela or a Target or some level of hell like that. We were getting one of these little toy cars. Went out in the parking lot surrounded by Buicks and Pontiacs. I thought that would be a good place to tell about the origins of life, And I said, Joe, we're walking along. This is a couple of years ago. We're walking along, and I said, Joe, have you ever thought about how you got here, where you came from, where I came from, how people are made, what that's like? And he was walking along. He said, no. And I said, well, would you like to know? And he looked up at me and said, is this going to be another one of your jokes, Dad? I thought about it, and I figured it probably was, so I didn't say it. So he lives in complete ignorance. I think his sister told him everything anyway. like to thank you all for coming out tonight. It's been nice coming back to D.C. again. Thanks again. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, Leo Kottke. Leo Kottke.
Thank you very much. This is a children's tune with a couple other melodies stuck in it. Oh, wait a minute. That wasn't right at all. Can I do that again?
Thank you.
I've been getting a lot of requests for that tonight, so I'll do that one. A lot of them are from the last set, but I guess that's tough. Down, you'll find that a stranger than known signs in the street that say where you're going by somewhere just being their own. Afraid of losing their ground. Rain gray town, known for its sound. In places, small faces unbound. In places, small faces unbound. A bunch of hogs. Thanks a lot. Good night.